Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's live. We're at a different time today, not 12 o'clock. We're at 2 o'clock, which is great because I'm not teaching this week because it's spring break. And neither is my friend Joanna Anderson here. She's going to be joining me today. Hello, Jo. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Good.
Good.
How long have we known each other? I was thinking about this the other day. I was like going through like my friends list and being like, how long have I known people? When
Well,
did
I
I
think
first meet you?
it was like my third or fourth year in the mirror program because I met you through teaching. You were teaching me
Was it
for,
2015 or 2016?
I think 2016 sounds right.
Oh,
Yeah, it's been a while.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love when you
me
hit
too.
like you're past the 5 year mark and then like you're past the 10 year mark and then you're like, okay, but
What?
now is just old news. But
Okay.
yes, Jo is a dancer, a creator, a choreographer, a facilitator, a barista, an amazing friend, a creative being. And I'm so excited that she said that she'd just come on here and chat with us today.
I guess me too.
Um,
Thank you for
did
having me.
did I leave any of your fabulous traits out?
Oh no, I think you covered them. It was pretty nice.
Okay, before we jump into the conversation, I do want to remind people of my 32 for 32 campaign. This is a campaign to drive not only action but change in our world, and that's I'm not giving away, but I'm offering 3 of my workouts from the 2020 membership, and my masterclass on fascia, and my stretch resource page, and ways to just add contribution to go towards my $3,200 goal by the time I'm 32 on April 26th. All the profits go towards Ravens Trust, which is an Indigenous law firm. They provide Indigenous people with uh, funds for lawyers and whatnot. And also Rachel Ricketts' campaign, or sorry, her scholarships for Black and Indigenous women to get the healing help that they require. So I'll split the money, whatever it comes in, and there's also some calls to action. One of those action is to take an anti-harassment course or to take one of Rachel Ricketts' courses. And I got more information. I won't go too far into it on my website, and I'll post the links in the chat or in the comments. There's also some other links that are come up that we're going to put in here so we don't forget. So yeah, that's all the promotional stuff out of the way. Let's dive into today's little conversation.
Yeah.
Emotion.
Emotions. I think you and I can both say that we're both quite emotional feeling type people. In saying that everyone is that kind of person, but like I feel big and I go up and down. And can you relate to that? I feel like.
Oh my goodness. I swing. I swing so in alignment and feeling so high on source and energy, and my high spirit just like working through me. And then I swing to I'm fucking pissed at the universe and
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on right now. So yeah,
Mhm.
emotions. And like we were talking the other day about how like what kind of discussion we wanted to have, and I think like the emotions just tied to like your current work that you're working on right now and just your creative life is so prominent, and then it just bled so beautifully into the state of the world right now.
Yeah.
All the emotions going on, and just that reminder that to process them and to go through them and to not shove them down, and definitely learning that again currently. So yeah,
Yeah.
I can feel it. Short answer, yes, I am that too.
Yes. Yes. It's good to know we're not alone. Yeah, because
Right.
I think sometimes there can be a bit of an isolation, or you feel isolated sometimes when you're feeling so much. regardless of what it is, where you feel you're so in that zone of whatever the thing is you're feeling, whether it's like, I'm so sad or grieving something, to like, I'm so happy and I want people to be on board with me, right? We want the unity of people together and to feel together and to empathize with each other. And I think like one of the biggest things I thought about in talking to you today was like, oh, what is something in the area of emotions that has really stood out to me and helped me in my own growth? And that has been learning and continually learning how to empathize with myself, regardless of what I'm feeling. And that has been such a key for me, because I'm quite empathetic, and I'm empathetic for people and whatever people are working through or feeling. But I was lacking a lot of that for myself, which I think that was a huge key in actually growing my empathy and expanding it for other people and helping me process and fully work through, like, whether it be grief or whatever the emotion I was working through or the process I was working through. It helped me get there, versus, like you said, shoving it down or restricting a process from actually happening. So that's been a big one for me, is learning how to empathize with myself.
Can you, I mean, that is everything you're saying. I'm like, because it's like, I need to hear that because it's uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
But can you expand on how you practice that for yourself and what that might look like in the ability to recognize where the empathy for yourself was lacking, and how did you, like, I guess, recognize where that moment is where you have to now apply?
Yes.
Because it's different. I feel like it's in the same realm of like self-love, but like you specifically are saying like empathy, and it's very distinct.
Yes. Yeah. And to answer that question, I would say, where I used to be in way more of a habit of, say, for example, I'd be in a situation where I'd get really angry with someone for something that maybe I felt like I blew out of proportion, or why am I so angry? And I'd end up, my first response was to actually judge myself or to judge the emotion, instead of letting myself just go, okay, I'm angry, and acknowledging it and giving it room and space to be what it is in that moment. Instead, I was like threatened by that feeling, and then would try to reason myself out of it. So what I have been practicing, it actually is very helpful to imagine myself as a little person. So as like a younger version of me, where I can like look at myself and be like, oh, okay, Joe, you're feeling a lot. What are you feeling? Let's give space for that. And it's amazing how much it's shifted my response to self, and therefore to the situation, where it's like, if I can give myself room to just feel what I'm feeling, then I can take the next steps to actually process through what that looks like or what actions to take. But it's actually, the feeling itself is not bad. Feelings aren't bad. And I'm trying to be better at acknowledging that all feelings are good, and our feelings like anger and sadness and happiness or joy, those are all equal to each other. They are what they are. And so, yeah, just taking the judgment portion off of something and being able to just give myself space to be there. Kind of like picture your many versions of you at a table, just being like, okay, we're all here together. Right now we're looking at angry Joe. We're just going to give her the floor. Then we're going to like work our way around the table, you know?
Oh my God. That is a brilliant way to do it. I'm going to need to practice that. And these are things that, like, I know, I read about, I've practiced before. Personally, in this moment right now, for me, I've forgotten a lot of that. Mm-hmm. And that's interesting because, like, that was bringing me down a spiral of self-judgment of like, I know all this, I talk about this, I've been doing this for 3 years, like this kind of like processing of emotions. Mm-hmm. And the fact that I had unknowingly slipped off the wagon, like I had just kind of like, or like running the track, I just kind of like teetered and just kind of hid in the bleachers, I guess, if you want to imagine something. I was giving myself like a lot of judgment for not doing that. So thank you for these like reminders and that beautiful image of just being like, okay, family style, we're all at the table now. Like,
yeah,
who's vibing just a little bit extra, and like who needs to take the floor down?
yeah.
That's so brilliant.
Yeah,
that's
and
so
I mean,
good.
imagery is really helpful for me. Not necessarily for everyone, but like I love picturing self when I'm talking to self, or if I'm in a space where like I sometimes need that interaction to actually, it's helpful for me to have that empathy, because I'm like, if I was actually talking to a kid with big emotions right now, I'd have a lot more room and space for them, versus imagining talking to myself as an adult where it's like, you should be here, you should have this figured out, you shouldn't be reacting right now. It's like, well, you are. So it's like, you are reacting, and that doesn't make you a terrible person. It just is, it is what it is. And it's like information, right? I just feel like more and more emotions are information. Yeah.
Yeah. How has this affected your relationships with other people?
Oh, good question. I think it's, like I said, I think it's allowed more room for other people to be where they are emotionally. And sometimes that can be really hard because it affects you as well, especially when people are in a space of defensiveness or reaction towards something you have done. There's actually still room for that. And it doesn't mean you're not going to have a hard conversation or go to those spaces with people, but it helps me see, especially when it's like exaggerated reactions, to go, oh, that's rooted to something. I think there's something more here. This person is really reacting to this space, or is feeling a lot here, and there's probably really good reason for that. And they might not even know it, right? So it gives, like, me having that experience with myself, therefore translates to me being able to, I think, give other people room. And that's something I'm still working on. It's a never ending process.
Yeah, it never ends. And I think that's where, I mean, I see these practices in multiple different ways. I mean, we kind of have to go through our own process so that we can be more for somebody else. We can't be more for somebody else and not haven't gone through any of it ourselves, because there's that level of like, well, you're doing it for them, but you're not doing it for yourself. Kind of like fill your own cup up before you can fill somebody else, or help somebody fill their own cup up.
Exactly.
So there's like tons of ways that this translates and can be done. And yeah, it's true. When you can process for your own, you also don't bring in extra into a situation. How long do you think this, on average, since you've been practicing it, does it get shorter in time frame?
Yeah.
Or does it vary? I mean, I feel like if it's like an extreme emotion with like a lot of things that kind of fueled it, it would take a little bit more time to sift in through and process, and kind of come out on the other side. But has it gotten easier? Has it gotten faster to recognize?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say specifically in the area of where there was a few years in my schooling that actually I found a lot of old wounds were coming up in me throughout my childhood, teenage years, kind of a repetitive pattern that would happen in my life connected to relationship with friends. And so whenever I felt the threat of that or fear come up, like, oh, this might happen again, it would be like, I'm faster at being able to recognize things like that and say, okay, you're feeling this and it's connected to these things. And I can hold that as like, be less reactionary to it and just hold it as information, and be able to be like, that's normal. That's okay that you're feeling those things, but you also know where they're connected to, like where you're going with them, what you actually want. And so that's been faster in being able to connect to things that I've already been like processing and dealing with. I would say there are still times where things come up. I'm like, oh, that's a really strong reaction. And I don't know what to do with this, like all these feelings. And I have to and I know that's going to take more time because that's still a part of me that I'm really working through and having to maybe even heal through or grieve. So in those spaces, that does take a little longer, but I have more tools to go, okay, you're feeling these things. Yeah, that's okay. And let's give myself space to feel it. Like the other night, I just had the need. It was like, I just need to lie down on my floor and look at the tree outside and name my feelings. And I literally just lay there and I was like, okay, I'm feeling really, really sad. I'm just going to feel sad. And I'm really disappointed. And I'm going to name why I'm disappointed. And then the tears suddenly were there. And it was like coming through me, going through me. And I was able to just hold that space. And so I feel like I have more tools. And yeah.
That's really awesome. Thank you for sharing that. That makes it tangible, I think. And even for me, just that tangibility of what that process looks like for somebody else.
Yes.
My friend Candice, she has a podcast called Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. And she talks about having constructive breakdowns. And you can check out this episode on her podcast, but it's where you have these moments where you allow yourself to let it all come out. And you can have them as often as you need them, but they're with an intention to process that emotion. They're with the intent to bring it up, to see it, and so that you can shift into your happier self that you naturally are all the time. And allow yourself to break it down, have those moments, let yourself cry, let yourself get mad, punch your pillows, scream. She does mention if you're in apartment buildings, scream that someone's not blood curdling because someone might get frightened for you.
Yeah, that's where a car is really nice.
That is where a car is really nice. And but to allow yourself to have these moments, and just a reminder for everybody, even in this time, to have them. And I'm saying that for myself, literally, because yesterday I was on a walk and I was thinking some things and I had no Kleenex with me. Everybody who sniffles these days is frightened.
Yeah.
And I was having a full on breakdown down the street, and I had to call my mom and I had to be I need you to talk about something so that I don't break down. And then breaking down in a parking lot, just a couple blocks from my house, which kind of backed into a back alley. I don't know if that looked great, but I totally if I was doing the bad cry, I was doing the hyperventilating, and it's because I hadn't let myself feel emotions the way that I needed to process them. And so, reminder to myself, and maybe who else is listening, to have these moments. Candice calls them constructive breakdowns. Joe is calling them just holding space for them and naming them and going through them and allowing those tears to come up, allowing the laughter to come in. It's actually funny how many times tears come and you giggle.
Yeah. Well, grief and joy are very interrelated.
Yeah, I think if you were to have them on a line, and then there was neutral, I think they're the same part.
Yeah.
So they kind of cancel each other out.
Well, you kind of, if you think about it, if you're really grieving a thing, I know that when my dad had passed away and I was going through a process of grieving his passing, there was a good solid year or two that I was going from extreme, just bawling my eyes out. And then the next moment I was laughing hysterically. And it was I think your body knows that it needs to have relief in some way, right? So tears can be relief, but also laughter is relief. And there's even no judgment there, right? A process is your process. like some people are really uncomfortable with how other people are exhibiting emotions in certain circumstances. They're like, why are they reacting that way? But it's because our emotions are wild and they do that. And our bodies are responding the way that we need to process a thing. And sometimes that means, laughing until you're crying and vice versa.
Yeah.
Yeah. But even like as you were talking, I was thinking this is something I'm really passionate about right now and thinking about a lot for myself is normalizing the harder emotions or the emotions that are less popular. So like often joy and fun and happiness and like peace, all those things are really upheld in our society and is like, be positive, always be positive, be working towards being positive, which sometimes can restrict those other emotions that are actually just as valid and helpful and a part of life, like because life is sad and hard and there's grief all the time, right? Big and small, that if we're working so hard to be positive, we're not going to leave space and room for those other emotions. And then we get into these spaces where it's like, but I'm feeling all these things. And then it just explodes because you're like, where else are you going to put them? Yeah.
Yeah. And it's usually going to explode into places and to people that you didn't want to do.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Which often, I'm learning now that, I'm not a robot.
Yes.
And even just the practice of like today, a trainer came over. Like if anybody follows me on social media, you know that I kind of took the latest BC news quite hard. And it wasn't even that it directly affected, well, it did affect me because it took away one of my jobs, but it didn't directly affect like my ability to work. Mm-hmm. But like 90% of my friends work in these industries. And so to like, sometimes it's not easy for me to empathize one-on-one because I'm so in a space of like, how can we shift that for you? I forget sometimes that there's like a process before you get to the shifting moment.
Yeah.
But collectively, like I feel like the collectiveness. And so to know and to see that like 90% of my friends just like in the course of hours went from like paying their rent to like, oh fuck, I can't pay rent next month. Like I like literally being like, I am, and then like, no. And you're kind of like, holy shit. So I took it really hard. And like today, a trainer came up to me in the morning and was like, hey, how are you doing today? And I could have said, fine. But something inside of me was like, not good today. And it was like that honesty of just being like, just taking a second for myself and just being like, no, actually, you're not doing fine mentally, emotionally, that you have a blue cloud. It's not rainbows right now. Mm-hmm. It's not sunny. It's cloudy. And just that acknowledgement allowed like that cloud to depart just a little bit. Yeah. And it allowed like the pink to come back in the rainbow for that moment, for these moments, and continue to do so, because instead of saying, I'm good, kind of sucks right now, but I'm good, I was like, yeah,
no, I love that. And I actually think that creates space for even that person who asked you or people in the room to be like, oh, it's okay for me to also express that, right? Like you're in us being honest and authentic, you are actually shifting the space and atmosphere for other people. I really believe that, because if we all get in the habit of just being like, yeah, fine, nothing's going to change until someone's like, no, I'm not fine. And then it's like, oh, okay, the script is off. We need to shift, right?
I mean, felt uncomfortable to say that.
Yeah, of course.
Because I am this bubbly person. I do like to be, the optimistic one in the group. I like to see the silver linings and everything, because I truly, truly, truly believe that it's all happening for you, not against you. There's something here that is bigger than whatever. And it can be not even just in the world today right now, but in any situation, there's something here. Like you said, there's information here. There's information. And if we don't let that information come in, then it's going to come at another time.
Yeah, totally. And it is like overall restricting, like there's such a work to push against those things, but it's actually that creates more restriction and less ease and freedom within ourselves and less of a connection with people, right? Because if we're trying so hard to do that for people and to do that for ourselves, but then are just kind of not giving that room for those other emotions, then I think people sense that too, and that it'll be harder for people to be vulnerable and to be like, wait, I have nothing to give here. And that's so true. Like we all find ourselves in the spaces of, and being able to say, it's okay to be weak here, or to need encouragement, or to just express what I actually feel. Because like that can actually create more encouragement for other people. I really believe that. But it is hard and an uncomfortable space, especially if you have a perception of self, which I relate to that, where I'm like, oh, often people see me as very boisterous and energetic, enthusiastic and happy. And, I'm like, and I am all those things, but I'm also very moody, and I'm very like melancholic, and I feel a lot, and I sometimes feel really anxious, and that's okay too. And
yeah.
I think
But you feeling those things allows you to step more fully into all those other parts.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. Yes.
Because
Yeah.
we're like law of attraction always talks about how like we were born happy beings. And yes, but we're taught so much negative. We're taught that, like we're taught to fear emotions. We're taught to suppress anger. We're taught to not cry, or, don't cry too much, or you're too loud.
Yeah.
We're taught all these things. And so it makes us like fear them, but then we get really stuck on like the good part. And so that when we feel the bad part, we're like, no, but then I can't be the good part. And like you just being like, I'm going to feel these on my own time so that I can deal with them, be with them, have them, and I can be more fully me, which is the joyful and I can show up in those spaces knowing that all of me is being taken care of.
Yes. Yeah.
Like I can bounce on the spectrum, and I can flip the spectrum, and I can fully be in my moody ways and let it be moody, because shit happens. Yeah. And then I can fully be over here. But if we're not fully,
or you can even be both, right? Like
like
you're saying, with the laughter and the tears and there's sometimes where you're actually, we are complex beings that are able to feel multiple things at the same time. So sometimes that can be confusing, because you feel so joyful and happy, and at the same moment you also feel such a grief because things are not the way they used to be, but this new thing is wonderful, right? So like it isn't so black and white either. Like we're feeling multiple things all the time.
That's so true.
Yeah.
I just want to pop over to how this has influenced your current creative practice.
Yes.
Because you started doing like last year these like little videos on Instagram and dealing, speaking and talking about different topics of like body language, and which is tied into emotions. Like a lot of body language is like emotion based. Because our bodies speak before our mouths can.
Absolutely. Like feeling protective. That's a basic example, but it's true.
How is this, research, observations, process been in your creative work?
It's a great question. Well, I think I've always been someone, because like I said already, I've always been someone who's felt a lot and is very engaged with my emotions, and I'm a very hard on my sleeve kind of person. So that has come out in my creativity from day one, where a lot of what I'm processing presently in my life ends up coming out in my work most of the time. So what I got really excited about, the things I'm really passionate about are, emotions, but also the body, and psychology, and how all of those things connect together. And so then I decided to start interviewing people and myself and put movement to my voice or someone else's voice, talking about their experience of how their bodies emote, whether it be a reaction that is a fearful reaction or something to do with protection, or you name it, basically any kind of emotion, and how that comes through in people's bodies, or how they experience that in their body. And so that's kind of what I've started doing. And now I'm actually going to be working on a project where I'm going to be interviewing some seniors and talking about their process in isolation during this COVID time. And I'm going to take some of those interviews and put that in my body to their voice. Ooh. And perform it. So that, stay tuned, because that'll be coming up. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm just really excited about it, because I feel like there's so many spaces to go, so many like open doors for the subject, and it's just very human and connected to us. So I realize I'm just excited about connecting to people, and I really believe we're all movers, and we all use our bodies, and our body and our emotions and our mind, everything's all connected. And sometimes when we forget one part, it's going to affect the other part. So if I'm restricting my emotions, then that's going to come through in my body, right? And
yes. Oh my God.
Yeah. Where do you see this? Like, how do you find this?
What part? The body emotions?
Yeah. And like the question of how, yeah.
I mean, your mind holds the memory. Your body remembers the feeling.
Yes.
So like your, so like even in my practice of like stretch therapy, like the like control, like people who are so used to being in control have a hard time letting their body be moved, because their body's like, nah, I want to. And it's so like just getting people to recognize that they are subconsciously holding is really interesting. And one of my favorite parts about working with people is that I get to help them let go of whatever. Sometimes when I move their leg and it's like completely guarded, I say, what's happened to you? Like, have you fallen? Have you hurt the other leg, and this one had to hold a lot of the work? And so like people don't even remember like right away what's happened in their life, but their body keeps a score.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that it has to stay that way. It can shift. And I've been doing, back in 2017, I started working with an emotional code practitioner. And I like put her in the links, Mandy. And I started reading the book now. And I started practicing the emotion code on myself recently. And like even the pain, like if you are dealing with an emotion that you're not processing, your body will like hold on to that, and it's going to come up physically, or it can come out mentally and emotionally in different ways. So like when I feel the weight of my weight of the world on my shoulders, my shoulder will get so pain, like it will have so much pain, and like the joint won't work, the fascia gets all knotted and stuck. And it recently happened, and I like kind of tracked it back to like when it started, and it started around March 10th, when the whole world was really going into like fear panic mode last year. I was like, oh, there's something here that I'm not recognizing. And I remembered it, but then I stopped like kind of thinking about it. And just today I did an emotional code session on myself, and my pain, like my not movement pain necessarily, but my resting pain went from like a 7 to a 3.
Wow.
In 20 minutes, because I let certain emotions that I charted, like, let them go. But I had to recognize which ones they were.
Yeah.
And there's so many examples of people that just like, it's called trapped emotions. Like you feel something in some regard, but you don't process it the way fully. And you have like hundreds of these, especially as you grow up as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll manifest into ailments, hard times doing things, physical, like emotional orders, mental disorders, like because we're all energy, and so that's affecting us. And it's like you can't just treat the body without treating like the subconscious and like the mental state, and vice versa. You can't just address the mental state without getting the body to move it around. So yeah, there's so many things that I've experienced on myself that when dealt with from an emotion standpoint allows like the physicality and the mental state to get stronger. And there's so many examples of like working with clients when we just recognize that, oh, something is sticky here, not just because it's the body, but like, for them to just be okay with letting any emotion come up. Like I've moved people and I've moved them and they just started crying.
Yes.
And it's okay. Just, you don't got to name it. You don't have to like remember and traumatize yourself again, but you just have to let it come out.
Yes.
And so many client examples.
I love that. And I really want to stress too that in the practice of coming out of a space where you've pushed things down and suppressed things to practicing engaging and acknowledging those emotions, it's going to be messy, like to give yourself room to be messy and to not handle things well and to react and to feel a lot or barely feel anything, and that's okay too. And it's like any process of learning, you have to start somewhere and you have to practice it, and then it starts to be more full of ease. So that's just something I need to keep reminding myself too, right? Where especially when you've gained a lot of new tools and information, and then you watch yourself in a situation, you're like, why am I responding this way? Like, oh, I'm judging myself again. I'm responding this way. It's giving me information.
Yeah, one thing I just recently came to the realization is that we can do what a lot of people call like inner child healing. And we can do a lot of like past life regression things, if you believe in that. You can do a lot of releasing of past. But what we forget to remind people is that we're still living.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when something else shitty comes up that's present, that you understand where that you're like, you don't go into like your typical reaction because you're aware of it now. But if you still don't process this shitty, crappy moment the way that you require, 5 years down the road, you might be digging it back up. So like we can keep, you keep wanting to unpack things so that you can shift and change and grow and expand and flourish. And remember that I think when they say like it's a constant practice, it's because it's like we're still living a current life.
Yes.
We still, things like today will be in the past. And if I don't deal with what's happening today, in a week, I might need to deal with it.
Yes.
And if I don't deal with it in a week, 10 years down the road, I'm going to have to come back to it. So
Yeah, totally.
I had to like put that into place where I was like, I thought I got rid of all this. I'm like, yeah, you did. But like this moment right now is happening and we need to deal with this moment.
Yes. Well, and even areas like, okay, I worked through this childhood wound or trauma, or it's like sometimes I think we think once I've worked through this thing, like you're saying, like it's done and it's good, I can go on my merry way. But it's like that thing might come up again. Like I have that happen often where I'm just like in a situation where I'm like, whoa, this reminds me of that thing that I've really done the work to like process through. And they're all the same feelings. But that's okay, because of course they're there, because this is like that threat. It's like your whole body is going alert, alert, alert. Except now you have more information. And
yeah, and that's where the lesson becomes the lesson.
yes.
Those are the moments where you're like, oh, I see this now. Okay, instead of choosing A and B, which I did last time, I'm going to choose F and G.
Mm-hmm.
And then we like get to learn that experience instead of like being like, oh, I didn't get it, so I'm like, I know I'm going to get it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when that moment comes up again, you can be like, oh yeah, no, I've been here before. We can do this. This is good. This worked. I'm gonna add this on now. Or like that choice didn't work, and then that choice didn't work. Okay, what are the other options?
Yeah.
Like we have that ability to, I think the key word is like recognize and not be reactive, but be present and choosing. I think we forget that we have choice so much of the time in our lives.
Yeah.
People who have road rage, and my boyfriend's listening to this, he's gonna hate me. But people who have road rage, I'm like, that's literally a choice that you have. They cannot hear you in their car. So you yelling at them is not changing anything in this situation because you're not having a dialogue.
Yeah.
So you want to be mad, or can you just like be grateful that your cars didn't hit?
Or ask, why am I so enraged at this?
Yeah.
I totally have road rage sometimes where I'm just like, I'm so mad. And I'm like, why am I, whoa, where is that coming from?
And then do you realize like how quickly that like calms you down? That question of like, ooh, I'm like driving very aggressively right now. Or wow, I really got ticked off about that person. Like, what, like you might be aggressive because you are late for what you need to do, which that person didn't make you late.
No. Yeah, it's not their fault.
So I think like, I mean, it's not about like blaming and like responsibility of self right now. Like that's not the conversation, but the choice, I think when people, if this conversation of emotions is new to somebody, I remember being like, but this is making me this, instead of seeing it from like, okay, but I'm in control of what I think and how I put words out of my mouth. Like sometimes it comes out without a filter, but I have choice I have choice in every single moment to do A, B, or C. And like recognizing when things happen, choosing to recognize them, choosing to deal with them, choosing to do whatever you're going to do. I think, I often see people not recognize that they have choice in every area of their life.
Yeah. And I hear a lot, this person made me feel such and such, which, yes, you felt that. That's valid. You felt that feeling. But nobody makes us feel anything. We feel something because of an experience or whatever it's connected to. It's brought that emotion up in us. But there is such a drive in humans to defend self, or to like justify self, or to like put the blame on anything else but self. And it's not about blaming your experience or judging your experience or the fact that you are experiencing certain emotions. Like that's not the issue, but it's more recognizing like emotions are powerful, feelings are powerful. They drive us to do a lot of things, but within all of that, yeah, they're still just feelings. And there's a process behind that where acknowledging them is, I think, often the first step to then allowing us to like make some good choices after, or not great choices, but sometimes that happens too.
It's the choice.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
This conversation has been so, I think, for me, very in the moment, in the present. It's interesting how the past few conversations I've had with people have been very much unknowingly synced to the moment that we're speaking them.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is really great. So like encouraging everyone to just have more constructive breakdowns, have more time where they name their feelings so that they don't fester into a time that we're allowed to be fully in one and fully in others. And that if you're only going to show up in one spectrum, you're actually not giving room for your whole self to be present.
Yeah.
Reminders to me to do more work on this. I'm one to just kind of keep going.
Right.
But I have to even bring my emotions to the table and be like, okay,
Yeah.
where are we at today, guys?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Where are we feeling? Okay.
Who
needs the floor? Who needs the mic? Who needs the talking stick?
Yes. Yeah. Totally.
And in doing so, we give ourselves that power. We have more confidence with ourselves. We are there for more people. And we are more of us because we are so many things. So many things. Before we wrap it up, is there anything you want to leave the listeners and the watchers with, Jo?
Just encouragement to just keep trying. It's okay that it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
We're all in it together. I think how you summarized that was beautiful. So yeah.
Great. And if anybody wants to creep Jo and her creativeness and her hilarious cooking moments, you can find her on Instagram. I'll drop her link below. And she also has her latest creation, streaming live. It's free, right?
It's by donation, so $0 to $10, I think, on the Dance Center website.
Great, and I put that link in the comments at 12 Minute Max. So yeah, go over there. I'll watch it later tonight after my course, and watch your latest creation that you've done. And if you have any questions or comments or feedback, let us know either directly, and if you think someone needs to hear this, share it with them. Yeah. So until next time, my friends, Jo, you don't have to log off, but I'll close this broadcast for now.
Okay,
all right. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.